You have tuned in to Be the Voice podcast, where we are using our voices to shatter the silence by promoting healing from past trauma, aiming for victorious living, and uplifting the work to improve our communities. It's time to be informed, encouraged, and empowered with your favorite host, Dee Marie. Well, good evening and welcome to Be the Voice podcast. This is your host, Dee Marie, and we are here with another amazing episode. As you may or may not know, May is actually Mental Health Awareness Month. So this is a conversation that definitely needs to be had. We have some amazing people here in the studio. But before we get started, I want you to know that Be the Voice podcast is actually brought to you by Voices Magazine. And Voices Magazine is an online magazine that is tailored to the voices of sexual abuse survivors. And in the magazine, you will find a feature story of a survivor. We have Counselor's Corner, Healthy Living, Tips and Safety, and we actually spotlight organizations in the community that are doing the work. Now, if you're saying, okay, that sounds great, but I really don't need to read the magazine, I beg to differ. The magazine is actually amazing and it will inform you, encourage, and empower. So if you are interested in getting a copy of the magazine, you can go to the website, which is vosasmagazine.com, and that's VOSAS magazine.com. And trust me, you will be blessed when you read it. So, all right, without further ado, I want to introduce my amazing guest. I know I always say, I'm so excited, but that's just who I am. So, but today we're going to talk about Mental Health Awareness Month. And I have two amazing ladies here that will be on the show. And we're just going to dive in the conversation because as much as we take care of our physical health, it is important to always take care of our mental health. And I think it's important to start normalizing going to get mental wellness checkups just as we do every year for, our physical bodies. So introduce yourself. So we have Sally. So Sally, please tell them about what you're doing.
Okay. Thank you for having me, first of all. I think you're doing amazing things with the podcast. So my name is Sally Desu, and I am the founder of Gleam of Hope Community.
Yes.
Which I started in March of 2022. Mm-hmm. And then I had my first support group in May of 2022.
Amazing. Okay. Anything else? No.
Well, I was gonna.
And we have Kathleen here.
I'm Kathleen Murray. I am the grant coordinator for a project called the Mo Taylor Project. We work with transition age youth who have any range of behavioral health issues, and I work at Places for People.
Awesome. So with May being Mental Health Awareness Month, we all know this. And honestly, if you think about it, this has been a conversation like in our country for, I guess, the past couple of years. Mm-hmm. It seems like people, because, when we were young, I don't think mental health was even a subject. But Absolutely. Now it seems like people are now being more open and everything to talk about it. So what made you, Sally, and also you, Kathleen, what is something that made you really say, this is something that is really important, that I really need to get this message out there so that other people can know that it's important to check on your mental health?
So for me, it was a personal situation that happened to me with my son. So my son graduated from Parkway West High School in 2019. He went away to school. He went all the way at West Palm Beach, Florida, mm-hmm. So very far away. Didn't really see any signs in the beginning. He was a little on the strong-willed mm-hmm. spectrum.
And just to be transparent, so
yes.
Sally and I were neighbors when he was little.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, he did little things, and he was my first child. He was my oldest of three. So he was, as I said, thought maybe it's just a little bit strong-willed. Nevertheless, mm-hmm. never really disrespectful or anything. So after he went away to school, I would say we left August 2019. We dropped him off in school, see you later. And then October, just a few months later, I went for the parents' weekend in October. Mm-hmm. We had a great time. We drove to Miami. Everything was good. Didn't see any signs. And in this time frame, his grades were doing fine. Mm-hmm. He was in a small group mm-hmm. in college. And I thought it would be great for him because his grades were mediocre, but
right.
He would have a support system.
Okay.
So,
and it was like a small group, just like a group that he had decided to join? Or
the school had decided for him because his ACT scores went really high.
Understood.
So I really felt comfortable because it was a small group. And then things just kind of went downhill from there. About 2 weeks later, I was calling him and it was like night and day. He was kind of verbally aggressive. he started, and I thought, well, he lived a pretty sheltered life. So I thought maybe he's
Right.
just, testing boundaries or what have you. And then it continued. By November, he was already expelled from school, came back. He was going to Christian college. So he started using marijuana. And so short version is he was kicked out in November, came home, a totally different person.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it was extreme.
Now I want to talk about that too, because, like we see our kids, and we just see how they act. Yes, sometimes they misbehave.
Mhm.
So what made you think, like, because sometimes you say, okay, well, they're away now, they're just feeling themselves, but what was it? And I want to answer that. I want you to answer that, because I know, a lot of times I think parents, sometimes we miss signs because we know our kids,
Yeah.
and our kids they're not disrespectful. Then all of a sudden, you start noticing behavioral changes. Like what made you say, okay, something just really is not right? It wasn't just like misbehaving. It was something that just was not right.
Yeah, so when he came back, we kind of sort of had a intervention. The immediate family and my siblings came over to kind of we thought he was very disappointed in the fact that he went away to school and had to come back, and maybe he was really angry at himself and was not, showing
Right.
that. So, so when he came, we kind of had an intervention, and we were trying to talk, hey, school's not for everybody, but, let's kind of talk about what you want to do. We didn't even have an opportunity to really kind of scold him for getting kicked out of school and
Right.
spending all this
Right.
money. Before we even had an opportunity to do that, he was just extremely aggressive, and then he basically cursed the entire family out we were like, whoa, wait a minute. So that situation turned into, hey, maybe you just need to calm down. My brother offered for him to come kind of stay with him temporarily.
Mhm.
It was really
Right,
probably
because
for
at
a few
this
days.
point you're thinking he's just upset
He's
because
just upset.
he had to come back.
Absolutely.
Right.
So shortly after that, it went from him getting an physical altercation with my brother. Now, mind you, we're a very close-knit family, so none of this behavior had ever occurred.
Right.
Let alone someone, saying a bad word in our house. So it was just like,
and I'm sure in
right.
your mind you're thinking like, what is going on?
What is going on? I thought he was on drugs.
Yeah.
I decided to contact some of his the students at his school to see if maybe he had dabbled in some type of drug abuse. I had no idea because it was just so extreme. To me, it was kind of like an overnight.
Right. Now,
situation.
Were you thinking at this point that it was mental health, or you
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. Because it just happened. I guess I heard about it, knew about it, but there's just no way.
Right.
And at that time, I had started seeing a therapist, and he's the one who kind of mentioned, are you sure? Mental illness usually starts about the ages of, 18 to 21 at that age.
Oh,
because
really?
I shared with him kind of what was going on. So at that time, I thought, okay, maybe, but I still was it was so extreme. I thought there was drugs involved, and I was going to get to the bottom of it.
Right, exactly.
That's how I felt.
Because you're like, okay, this needs to stop.
This needs to stop. I'm looking on his social media page. Hacking into everything you can think of, trying to see what was going on. And then right after that happened, and I'm going to kind of give the short version, is that continued. He was not able to even stay with any of my siblings, and I have a family of 8. So was, there were options for him. And so it just continued, and we still couldn't figure out what was wrong until finally the first onset was when he kind of, between my brother and my other brother living, he grabbed a knife and he threatened them. So then called the police, and his first hospitalization was around that time. He went to SLU for a little bit. They actually did not diagnose him. They thought he was just kind of angry.
Right.
And that, he kind of knew what to say, what not to say. And that's a lot of times people don't understand, is people with mental illness kind of know how to be manipulative, especially if they've been in the system for a while.
But they don't realize that they're dealing with mental illness.
Right.
Like the person that's actually, having the issue, I guess they don't realize what's going on.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you said too about that it usually comes on between 18 and 22. Now, see, I don't know a lot about mental illness. So my thought was, well, wouldn't you see it when they were younger? But I guess not always.
So not always. And I'm sure Kathleen's going to have a little bit more information on that. She's probably itching like, no, it's actually 14 to, she has a little bit more. But considering the age that he started displaying the behavior, that's kind of, if it hadn't, or if you didn't see it when that person was younger, if it's coming on, then it kind of hits
Right.
around that age.
And I will say this too. And like in the African American community, a lot of times we will not talk about mental
Absolutely
illness.
not.
Like it's like, oh, they just need discipline.
Yeah,
You know, it's
they just
always
need to get
discipline.
whooped.
Yeah, it's always like they need a whooping. No, there's something else
There's
going
something
on.
going on.
Yeah, and like we really need to open up our eyes and realize that there's things about mental illness that we have to address and we have to face. Like
Absolutely.
it's real.
Absolutely, it's real. I think a lot of people, not only, you know, it's a huge stigma in our community.
Yeah.
And that is one of the reasons that I started the group. And I'll kind of go into that. But after this situation, it continued with my son. He went back to Florida.
Okay.
Came back, and that's kind of, and then this is where the part where I met Kathleen and my life changed and his life changed. So when he came back, so at this point, I was ready for him to go back for, still not, because the first hospitalization,
right.
you know, nothing happened.
Right.
And then at that time, he was hanging around a crowd, you know, I was afraid what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what, he couldn't live with us. He couldn't live with my siblings. And so at that point, we actually got an apartment, and I just didn't want my son in the streets.
Right.
And I'm not recommending this for anyone.
Yeah.
It's just that I didn't know what to do.
Right.
And I just didn't want him to be out on the streets.
Right.
Looking back, that may have not been the best, but at that point, I didn't know. So fast forward, he came back July 2021 of August, and he just showed up to St. Louis.
Oh.
Yeah. So he just kind of came back and couldn't stay, because at this point he's threatening. The paranoia had started while he was in Florida.
Okay.
You know, he thought that I was there communicating with his people he worked at. He kept getting terminated, and he thought I was the blame. He thought I had people watching. He thought his phones were tapped, and the list goes on. And every time I would be on the phone with him, I could hear him arguing with people, and I was like, something's going to happen. So when he came back, and he just, like I say, showed up at the airport, and he was just ready to come back. And he, again, at that point, he couldn't, because he had made so many threats. I was afraid for my children at the time.
Right.
So we did the whole hospitalization back and forth, and I had a lot of people that helped me during that process. Mm-hmm. And so just to, like I said, just to make the short version of it, is the absolute last time that he was hospitalized is when the fourth time, and I will say, I personally had a good experience with Mercy Hospital. That's when I ran into Kathleen. So once he was there admitted, I filed for an extension.
Okay.
What do you call that? An extension for him to stay in the.
I
had to. Yeah.
Okay.
Besides, in addition to the affidavit, I had to complete some paperwork to say that he's not ready to come out. Okay. Because he was refusing to take medication at the time.
And at this point, he was actually diagnosed with some sort of mental illness.
He was diagnosed, and initially, they diagnosed him with bipolar. Okay. But that wasn't his correct diagnosis. Okay. He was diagnosed with schizoaffective bipolar, and that actually came when Kathleen got involved. And then I'll let her talk a little bit about her first meeting with Josh. But after he was diagnosed and then started getting the help he needed, we got with Kathleen. Okay. Kathleen was assigned to him. I'll talk a little bit about how I started harassing Kathleen, but I'll kind of let Kathleen get the
and also, well, we'll get because I want to talk about how you advocated for him too with the police. But yeah, Kathleen, if you want to go ahead and tell. I know we said a lot.
Said a lot. I do want to say that mental illness, there's a big spectrum of mental illness. Okay. Sometimes it is as simple as an adjustment disorder, meaning someone has a very difficult time adjusting to certain things in their life. Sometimes a traumatic event, sometimes just different changes. That can happen across the spectrum of your whole life, 22 to 99. Okay. You know? Okay. What Sally is referring to is more the psychosis spectrum. Okay. The psychosis spectrum does show up in our younger people, typically between 16 to 26. Okay. In that transition age youth years. A lot of them, it is that younger, 17, 18, 19, 20, right in there, when they experience what's called first episode psychosis. Okay. That is what was happening to Josh. Now that we can look back, know his history, the symptoms, he was experiencing his first episode psychosis. And that's when people will say someone had a psychotic break.
Right. Oh,
That's
okay.
what that is.
Okay.
But before that, there are some other signs that are seen, maybe not necessarily in Josh, because some are a lot more subtle.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times what we have seen is kids around that 14, 15 years of age, that 10th grade, getting kicked out of school.
Right.
Lots of behavioral problems, a lot of juvenile justice involvement.
Oh, wow.
Now, that's not to say that all of those children,
Right.
that is what's called prodromal stage,
Mhm.
when psychosis is
Okay.
developing. It's
Okay.
coming about. Some changes are happening.
Okay.
What it looks like is personality changes, behavioral changes, and they start subtly. And like you said, especially in the African American community, there's a big stigma.
Yeah.
And so like in the city of St. Louis, what that's looked at a lot in schools is delinquency.
Yes.
And so then of course the courts get involved, and then further stipulations, further delinquency ensues. It just kind of, because you're not dealing with someone who's delinquent, you're dealing with someone who is getting an illness.
Oh, wow.
Think of it like when you're getting a cold. You feel something so you don't quite know.
Yeah, but you know
like
that, I'm just not feeling good. Yeah.
And spread that over some years. Yeah, I would get crabby too.
Yeah.
You know, things are changing. Thought process is changing. Things aren't necessarily making as much sense as they used to. And so then what Josh experienced was that first episode psychosis.
Okay.
An untreated psychosis will continue to develop, will continue to get worse. But treated psychosis, the really good news about that is that treated psychosis, you may never actually experience a psychotic episode again.
Oh, wow.
If you heavily participate in your treatment.
Okay.
There are some therapy models that help with cognitive behavioral, like how we think about things that we do, making better choices about some certain things. One of the most difficult is helping young people understand that some of the THC that they're smoking is actually making their symptoms worse.
Oh.
We try to explain there is an element of psychosis to that when someone smokes and they're like, did you see that? Or they go, what'd you say? And then the friend says, well, I didn't say anything.
Right.
Right? It's those little triggers, right? And so in someone who is not experiencing psychosis, it comes and goes quickly. But you can imagine if you have high levels of that, and a lot of our young people do.
Yes, they're
not smoking like we used to.
Right.
It's not like I got 5 on it and it's Saturday. It's, I have 5 blunts and it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Exactly.
That is a lot on a developing brain. That triggers. And so it's one of our hardest battles with our young people is helping them. We don't really say you cannot, because that never works.
Right.
We do practice harm reduction though.
Okay.
And we start talking about maybe instead of a blunt, can you roll a mini blunt? Can you roll a joint? Can you go down and try a bowl? So that if you feel like you need to get high, if that's how you're coping with things, that's how you're socializing. Like, okay, but how do you take less?
Right.
Because it's the amount.
Right. This is good. This is good, great information.
And in some brains, you just can't. Like I have diabetes. I can't eat a bunch of sugar.
Right.
Or there are some effects.
Right.
Whereas someone else can eat all the sugar they want.
And I will say just real quick on that, it took me a while just to say that what Kathleen was touching on. It took me a while to get to that point where it was like, you better not smoke. I can't believe it. I am not tolerating this. And again, he doesn't live at home with me, of course. But I got to the point where, wait a minute, he's going to. So I'm concerned about his mental. I don't want another psychosis. So now I can't even believe I'm saying this over time. Like, okay, let's bring it down to maybe 2 per day.
Right.
And I can't even imagine. And so I'm bringing this up to say that parents, there has to be some flexibility, not because you're tolerating it, not because it's okay. And it probably would be different if he was living at home with me. But in this case, you have to work with them because mental illness is real and it is a condition. So it's not something like you would treat a typical child in your home.
Exactly.
Dealing with that.
Yeah.
And it's a process. It is a process of recovery. There is recovery in mental illness, and that it's a daily practice, a daily process. It's for loved ones alike. I mean, there's a lot of phases that loved ones go through as well with this.
I can imagine, right?
Yeah. And so, I know Sally wanted me to talk a little bit about Josh when I first met him. He was in a hospital bed in a little cocoon, had been probably given his second Ativan shot of the day for lashing out at people, being very violent, threatening. It was kind of interesting. He was in a locked room with a guard, to which they did put me in there and the guard left. And I was like, well, this doesn't seem like a great idea for me here, but here we are. So I attempted to talk with him. He was in psychosis. So I don't know that what he was looking up at was what I was presenting.
Okay.
He was a little fearful. He was interested, but he was fearful, and he was very covered. I think a lot of what he's done is displayed some fearfulness about stuff, feeling like he's being watched. You're talking to people. Someone has his stuff.
Right.
All of that.
Right.
And we didn't have the best conversation the first time we met. He basically, and just to keep it clean, he told me where I could go and what I could do. And so I thanked him first time and told him I would be going, but I would be back. And so just kept showing up with him. I do think was at that same hospitalization. I spoke to him in another room. He was kind of up and moving around, and he was going to do some stuff. And he was really excited to talk to me, which I thought was really weird. Yeah. But he had somehow figured that if he talked to me, he was getting out that day.
Oh, okay.
So when I had to inform him that he was not, and that I had nowhere for him to go because he was threatening his family, and there was no safe place to put him,
right,
he was not happy. And so then he was again angry and shut down and did not want to speak to me.
Right.
Period. So I kept coming back and kept being present. And he would be very annoyed with me, but he would start to soften a little bit.
Okay.
Like, okay, well, I guess she's here now. And I'm very relentless,
So, okay. And I'm going to say that too. Like, I mean, hats off to you to actually, so do you show up for patients like when they're,
yes.
We
get some of our folks right out of the hospital.
Okay.
We get some folks, maybe they've been discharged and then they hear about us, or we get some folks who are really in the middle of crisis and hear about us because of maybe a police involvement or a neighbor or a friend knows us or something like that.
Yeah. Cause I can, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I will say that, excuse me. I will say by this time, Kathleen was probably the third case manager or not case manager, someone that they assigned to Josh from 3 different organizations. Mm-hmm. And they weren't helpful.
Oh, wow.
They were just like, I am so tired of getting, and I'm explaining the whole story. And so the good and worst thing they did was I had her contact information. So I was texting.
You're like, you're going to be my best friend.
It's going to be my best friend, Kathleen. I was trying to kind of explain to her what's going on with Josh. This is, I'm sure you deal with, hundreds of people, but, this just kind of, him personally. So you've seen him grow up. So to see that, like, this is not the person you see, which I'm sure she was aware of that. She deals with that. But in my mind, this is the third person I'm going to, latch on to this person, and I'm going to do whatever I can to, get the help that I need.
Right.
So it was a process with Josh, a hard process. Sally had to show a lot of tough love, which I did my best to support her through. Mm-hmm. We definitely cried together on the phone.
Oh, I'm sure.
From one mom to another.
Yeah.
Professional or not, I'm a mom.
Right.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
For her to have to, and for me to even encourage, you have to keep him out of your home. This is not safe. But with a stipulation, no one ever said you can't come home. It was, you can if you will take medication.
Right.
If you will start these medications and become more safe, you can.
Yeah.
This is what we're asking of you.
And I do have a question about the medication. Like, because I guess my question is not just even Josh, but just anyone, period. Like, if they don't want to take it, are they forced to take it?
They are not.
Okay.
They are not. It takes a lot, usually and like in Josh's situation, crossing off all other avenues.
Okay.
So you leave a person with, this is what you have to do.
Okay.
And sometimes though, if someone obtains guardianship, In more
Okay.
severe cases, so it could be
Right.
the state,
Right.
it could be a family member.
Mhm.
That person can then mandate them to go to the
Okay.
hospital.
Okay.
That person can be in charge of the decisions made.
Okay.
And that
Okay.
is often a very helpful thing, especially starting out, because it's difficult to be dealing with someone in psychosis because they seem very argumentative, combative, and all of that. But what is happening in their mind is a true belief. And what is being said is that, we are trying to harm them. They are trying to stay safe.
Right.
They're not trying to be mean and evil.
Right.
They're often terrified.
Yes.
And so it's their attempt to be safe.
Okay.
And so, like in Sally's case then, she did not have guardianship yet. This world was very new to her.
Yes.
And I don't think you ever thought to have guardianship of your grown
Right.
child.
Right.
You want to let them be grown and experience life.
Exactly. Yeah.
And, but for helping him get on a good trajectory, it was necessary, because he was not safe. He was not thinking very clearly. And as a parent, she had to protect her child.
Right.
Even from his own
himself.
decisions.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's, it's easy for me to say, but it was really hard for her to do.
Oh, I'm sure. I can only imagine as a parent that you have to make those decisions.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know, Sally, that you, because I did want to touch on this. You're good.
Allergy season, everyone.
But and I know you and I talked a little bit before about how you really you were an advocate for him,
Yes.
and how important that is to be an advocate for your child.
It is so very important. I mean, I can't stress that enough because one, there's so many things that you don't know, but you can't just take things for what is said to you, or you have to do your own kind of investigation.
Right.
And one of the things was even during me meeting Kathleen, I was looking up medication, just even finding guardianship. I had no idea where to start.
Right.
And one of the things that happens a lot of time is when these individuals are hospitalized, they'll get a packet of information to go home with. Now, mind you, most of the time, they're not in their right mind. They haven't started the medication process. So you're discharging patients with a big packet of information. What are they to do with it?
Exactly.
They're just resources. Okay, there's hotel rooms, there's this, that. They're not going to pick that up. And even with the medication, I'm thinking, well, how are these people going to get their medication? Because you're sending them home with a list of prescription. They're not going to know to go do this. So it's so much in that you just have no idea. So besides connecting with Kathleen and trying to figure it out, and one of the things, the organization that Kathleen is with is Places for People. I can't say enough great things about it, because it was like they did the screening. They assigned him a psychiatrist. The pharmacy is there. There's grants, if there's, if there, and I'll let Kathleen kind of go into that. But just things with doing the research. And then even fast forward to him getting on medication, when he finally agreed to get on the medication, what that looks like. There's so many side effects. Do you just say, oh, okay, well, he's going to get 8 different medication.
Right.
And in the beginning, they do give a lot so that they can get the person kind of in their system, et cetera.
Right.
So,
and I guess I assume they probably have to find out what works, or I don't know if they know, or how that
and that's where it comes in. So, for example, when Josh first got on medication, he was, I'll just say from the beginning, a total probably of 6 different medications, along with the injections, and Kathleen can say the name. But so during that process, little things that I noticed was some of the pills were making him tremble. His hands were shaking. And I'm like, wait, that is not right. I mean, I know he needs this medication, but then we'd meet back with the team and say, okay, I'm noticing this. He's trembling. And at the time, I kind of want to shout out to Dr. Dorothy Surratt. Alethea Surratt. And, she was the psychiatrist at the time.
Okay.
And just working with him, I felt like she was also his psychologist / psychiatrist, and kind of working with him. And, I'm talking to her, telling her, okay, I'm noticing this. This is kind of the side effects. So medications, slowly started changing. I'll be happy to say that a year and a little less than a half, he is no longer on any medication.
Oh, wow.
He is still getting the injections, and that started off every 2 weeks to every month, and now it's once every 3 months.
Oh, wow.
And I will say that necessarily shouldn't be the goal of parents to have
I
their
was
kid,
gonna ask,
you know.
yeah, like,
But
because I didn't see, and again, you
Yeah,
know, just
sure.
with my ignorance. So my thought is like, if they have medication, they stay on it forever, or
they can,
oh, okay,
you know, and it may
okay.
be a time that maybe he'll need to get back. I don't know.
Right.
But I'm happy to say, just with the help of the staff, and it also, I have to, you know, definitely applaud Joshua too, because if
Yeah,
he wasn't willing,
absolutely. Right.
but you definitely need a support system.
Mm-hmm.
You need a community,
Mhm.
Whatever that looks like for
Right.
you know. And as you know, mental illness, it doesn't matter if you come from a 2-parent household, single parent household, how much money you make,
Right. Exactly.
what your race is. It does not
It doesn't
discriminate
exactly.
at all.
Exactly.
So that's one of the biggest things, and that's just a commonality among all groups, is
Mhm.
that mental illness, people are still struggling with it. There's nothing in place.
Mhm.
You know, you don't get a B C D E, you do this, you do that, because there's so many components to
Yeah.
it. So it's extremely hard.
Okay, so besides like psychosis, like you were saying, I know, like, even, you know, in my time I've dealt with anxiety.
Okay.
You know, so like after I had my second child, I don't know, my heart was racing, like just so much going on, and I was going to the doctor, and they were like, "Ma'am, there's nothing wrong with you." I'm like, "There is, something's wrong with my heart." I mean, just in my mind, I was like, "There's something wrong with me." So finally, I went. They did give me a blood gas, where they actually like do take your blood from your artery to get it right away. And they said, so two doctors came in, and they were like, "Okay, ma'am, is there something going on in your life right now?" And I was like, "Well, I have a newborn and a 1-year-old." And they were like, "Okay, we understand what's going on. Like, there's nothing wrong with you." But even since then, though, I still kind of deal with anxiety every now and then. But now I kind of know how to do some coping mechanisms and things to help me with that. But I know that's a form of mental illness as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you talk about like anxiety or little subtle things like that?
Yeah, there are more subtle things like you said, anxiety. We see a lot of anxiety and depression in today's society.
Yeah.
You know, and we could go into hours of many different reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do. We see a lot of anxiety and depression, and then there's a lot of us suffering with trauma.
Okay.
That we are not addressing. There are a lot of people suffering with trauma, but because it is so ingrained in their life, a lot of these young people don't even identify what we would identify, very traumatic events, as trauma. Like, so if I just ask a blanket question, have you ever experienced any trauma? No, not at all. Was your neighbor just shot in front of the house and you saw it? Yeah, but I wasn't shot. So not even understanding what people are constantly inundated with of trauma all around and not even realizing it. And so then the anxiety comes about, depression comes about for many of us, because of course, like, I've never had mental illness. Why? This can't be that. I just maybe need a drink. I just need this. I just need that. And so a lot of times we start seeing heavy substance use. Yeah. Because of people self-medicating. We see that with psychosis as well, trying to quiet the voices. Right. You know? So self-medicating is a huge problem. So we do a lot of dual diagnosis. Okay. There, co-occurring disorders, because they go hand in hand. Many of our young people also have like a subdiagnosis of either an alcohol, cannabis, or some kind of stimulant related addiction or abuse disorder. And so what Sally was referring to, like with medicine, those are oral medications. Okay. Josh is off of his oral medications. Okay. He is on an injection that's called Invega Sustenna. Okay. And now he's on what's called Invega Trinza. It's the 3-month. Okay. And so it is it's a heavier dose, longer lasting, stretches out. And that's really for the convenience of the consumer. Okay. To not have to get the injection every month. Okay. For some people, it's painful in his case. So he wanted to go off the injection. What we do know with psychosis, though, is that it does not just disappear. Okay. So if he were to go off the injection, the fear is that it would come back. And the likelihood is that it would come back. Okay. And so we want to work with him on that, hear his concerns. No one wants him to be in pain every month. Absolutely, yeah. We also don't want him to revert back, nor does he.
Right.
And so we have those really open conversations. And so the idea was, well, what if you could do it every 3 months? And if we, this is his first time, we'll see how it goes. We monitor very, very closely and report back. Parents call. We have friends that we talk to. It's important to us. And we explain that to our young people as well, because we all don't see what's going on with us necessarily before someone who loves us and cares for us can see it.
Yeah.
And so we really are, and we're trying to help them repair some of those relationships as well, and for themselves and for their family. A lot of times a young person may feel really shunned, not really wants to deal with me, or I've caused so many problems. How can I go back?
I can imagine.
And without that support, it's just facts. People don't get as better. I know that's not the clinical way to say it.
Right.
But their recovery is so much more challenging. When a person has a proper place to sleep, proper food to eat, they have a purpose and they feel loved, they can get better. They really can.
Wow.
Anyone can get better.
Yeah.
But if they can have those
that
four
support,
things, it just means so much difference in how much better and how much faster and just how good everybody feels, because they can repair those relationships.
Right.
And that's what it boils down to. And I know for your family, you want your child.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who is this?
Right.
With all these behaviors.
Yeah.
My child. I want that child that I loved. And there may be some differences. We've talked about that. There are some personality changes that have occurred that are there.
Okay. Right.
But it's learning to kind of roll with that. And of course, sometimes you got to take a little good with the bad.
Right.
Yeah. But he's safe. Young people are safe, so it's like we have to tolerate the cussing sometimes.
That I still do not.
She don't like it. She don't like it, but
Yeah. And what do you say to the parents as far as like even having patience? Because I can't imagine.
Yeah.
And Sally, even with you, I mean, I'm sure you ran out of patience. Or
I'll let Kathleen answer the the professional part. With me, I learned even a lot about myself. I did not realize how controlling I was.
Really?
And am.
You like just with your kids, or just really?
Realizing I can't control this. And I wanted to be, you're going to respect me and you're not going to do this. You're not going to, curse and stuff. And then again, I'm not saying by any means,
absolutely.
I correct him. Does that mean he does? I mean, each time, he'll catch himself, but it's a lot. Like you can't be so quick to just cut them off because of certain behaviors. I had to learn that. And how I am as a mom. I mean, my kids are my world. So that was something very hard that I was learning about myself, to kind of release some of the control. And of course, it all goes back for me personally to my faith. And I wanted to kind of talk about everything leading up to this, but it goes back to big time my faith and just whatever you believe. For me, I had to go back to my belief in God and praying, and along with everything else, and remember that there is, you have to do the groundwork.
Yes.
And I think we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the faith and the community.
Yeah, because I did want to talk about that too, because unfortunately, I mean, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but we grew up in the church. Sally and I went to church together, and I think sometimes the church doesn't really address mental illness. A lot of times, as Christians, just pray about it. Okay, yeah, we can just pray about it. I get that, but there has to be some action.
Yeah, there has to be some action, and a lot of it is because we're taught that it's a spirit, and you just pray about it and you move forward, or you kind of ignore the situation completely. That is not the church my church does.
Right.
Touch bases on mental illness. It's not that they don't know. And I'll say openly, like, my pastor has been the most non-judgmental person in the situation. He's helped with Josh. He's helped him. He never judged the situation.
Right.
I mean, when I really realized that Josh was really struggling, is the way he was even speaking to my pastors, I'm like, okay, he's not turning it on and off. There is definitely something. So, but it is so important for church folks or people that have faith to realize mental illness is real.
It is real.
It is real.
Yes.
And you have to do more than just pray about it or, think that it's going to, or, put some anointing oil and it's not going to go away.
If you believe in God, God put people on this earth to help us.
Absolutely.
We all need help. We all need assistance. And there are people here that are to help us. So
Absolutely.
let's use them
and
seek
the
them
resources.
out. Exactly.
Yeah, let's use the resources. And that was one of the reasons. And I'll kind of start during the process when I was talking about just learning about it. I attended a lot of the NAMI organization, National Alliance Mental Illness, which I highly, highly recommend for people, and just an additional resource. But what I found out, at least in my experience, was I was the only person of color. And a lot of times, even when there's also socioeconomics in that room, and there were, doctors that were in there. And sometimes I really, I'm thinking in my mind, the average person is not going to relate because my son being African American, if the police are called, they're not going to have that same fear. So here he is, he's a male, he's over 18, he's being aggressive. That could be, and you've heard a lot of stories.
Absolutely.
And that, again, that's kind of where my faith, one, I learned to, of course, ask for a CIT officer. There's a lot of programs, and I'll let Kathleen talk a little bit about what's going on now.
Right. Because I didn't even want my boys to get their driver's license, let alone, deal with mental illness, and you got to deal with the police because you're fearful.
You're fearful. And again, bringing my faith back into it, I've always prayed protection over my children. And that kind of, but again, I'm going to ask for the idea. It's not going to take away the fear, but I'm always grateful and I'm always thankful. And I'm always, I always have to, back it up to giving God the glory for even bringing Kathleen into the picture. Just all the people that have helped. I can name, tons besides my family, friends that were there. Like action. I'm an actionable friend. Like, you're struggling with this, be there and help out. And and that's the importance of your community. And I know that everyone does not have that, but even if your community is 2 individuals, then latch on to that, and so that they can help you.
Absolutely.
And then Kathleen can talk a little bit more about that.
I was going to talk about that way because a lot of the young people that I work with, a lot of their families come with a lot of stigma, a lot of stigma. And there's valid reason for that. There's valid reason why in the African-American community, not very trusting of mental health services. Right. The history tells us that. Yes. So I think the first person someone has to know when helping someone is you have to acknowledge that. It's very real. Yeah. You have to acknowledge, understand, and be open to people's fears and answer questions. I think transparency is the best way to break that stigma. Right. And things like we're doing now. Right. And I talk with a lot of my young people, though. It's because of that, and it's because of the culture within which we live, that we somehow think the brain is some different part of our body. If we have heart issues, no problem going to a cardiologist. Yeah. If cancer strikes, no problem going to an oncologist. These are all parts of the body. If you had a brain tumor, you would quickly go to the doctor. Yeah. And so it is the stigma. Having mental illness is not different than having heart disease, having diabetes, having, a list, we could go on and on. Right. It's not different. It is a medical need. Some people, I don't have a cardiologist, but I do take antidepressants, right. And I do have to take things for diabetes. Right. But, but the next person could. And it's unfortunate that we don't look at it that way. Right. None of us do. Yeah. In any community, across the races. It's where we are, that it's somehow mental illness is, something's wrong with you. Yeah. Well, if I have a heart attack, something's wrong with me too. Yeah. But nobody shames you. Exactly. Yep. That's the thing. And that is the thing. It is, and nobody should be shamed for saying I need help. Ever. That's good. Nobody should be shamed. I do want to say that, you've touched on the grants, the things, the whatever. Where I work, I'm very fortunate that we don't serve a certain economic category. We serve any economic
that's
category.
awesome.
We have some clients in there who could pay 3 times my salary.
Mm-hmm.
We have some can't put 3 cents together, and they all deserve and receive excellent care.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is what is important.
Yes.
I've been there for 22 years, and that's why.
Wow.
Because everyone deserves that type of care, not just people who can afford it, right? None of us can afford to not address mental health issues.
That is very true.
As a community, when we don't address mental health issues, we see more and more problems, more trauma, building and building and building.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I accept these things a lot. My family sometimes wonders, why do you run off and do this all the time? Why that?
I was going to ask you too, like what made you, get into that field or decided that you want to do? Because I think I would be a little bit scared, like, because you're going in the room and it's like, oh, what do I do now?
This wasn't the path that I thought I would choose. I actually, when I was young, I wanted to be a neurosurgeon.
Oh, wow.
Or I thought marine biology. I was really into that. It was my own life, my own experiences. And when I struggled, I was very, very fortunate to have different individuals who played key roles in me getting through those struggles. And it's just my makeup. I feel like then I need to give back.
Yes.
And so I gradually just kind of started putting my toe in the water and doing some things. And just the more I became involved, and in this St. Louis community, I was a behavioral therapist, contracted with the courts, still with my agency, working with a lot of young men who now I'm seeing them.
Oh,
I didn't know that what was happening was prodromal. I didn't understand that.
Wow.
This is a lot of new information is out. We're educating a lot more. Even people in the field
are getting educated more about it.
I was treating delinquency. I was treating systemic behavioral issues. So it wasn't just saying like this 14-year-old is doing all of these things. No, they're a product of what's going on around them. So we were treating them systemically. We were missing a big part. Yeah. And we still are. And so we're pushing to look more into that. Those that are what we call clinically high risk. Because it's one thing to help someone when they're in the episode, when they're in the trauma. I have a dream of what if we can help them before.
Oh, that's
so that we don't have to experience that trauma.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to do that.
Yeah.
I talk to everybody I can. That's why we come here.
Right. That's why we're doing this, so we can have this conversation.
So you ask, why do I do this? The more that I started giving back, which was a self-need at first, that I needed to fulfill that self-need, I really just got very invested in the people around me and their needs and seeing them and being able to see that I can help. And so I'll stay and help.
Right.
And neurosurgery may be the next career. I don't know.
I did want to touch on something you said, though. You talked about how young people, even adults, don't even know that they're in trauma. Yes. And I think about like if we live in neighborhoods where there are shootings and we just normalize it.
Environmental trauma.
Yeah. And we just normalize it. Oh, they're shooting again. And you go on. And it's like, that's not normal. That's not normal. Like we shouldn't be used to that. No. And then we look at TV and just everything that's going on. Every day we hear, oh my God, somebody got shot. Somebody did this. And we just kind of go on. But that's trauma.
It's trauma. And we don't talk about it.
No, we don't.
Nobody talks about it. Nobody has a problem talking about so-and-so broke their arm and let's sign their cast and let's do all of that. And unless we talk about it more and more and more, and in all settings, and don't back down and don't get quiet and don't be ashamed ourselves.
Exactly.
And share these stories. I encourage young people, talk to a couple of young people today. They're going to be on a panel in North City talking about the stigma. They're doing it's like a painting thing, painting through the stigma.
Right.
I'll get you more information. I would love for you to put it out there to
absolutely.
people.
Yes.
And they're going to sit on a panel and talk about it.
Wow.
And be brave.
Yeah.
I mean, these are young people.
Oh, see, and that's
young people.
And a lot of the young people now, they seem like they are very much more vocal than we were.
Yes, they are. There are several efforts throughout the city, I'm sure throughout the country. I'm just focused right here.
Right.
To put that more in the media.
Okay.
To have billboards. To make it a normalized thing.
Yes.
If you are experiencing some of these things, ask for help. Here's where you get it.
Right.
Here's how you do it.
Yes.
And there are plenty of places just like us that you don't need money.
Right.
It's not about that. There are grants. That's what we're operating under.
Okay.
Sometimes, if you don't mind me sharing the
Yeah,
incident,
sure. Go right ahead.
the medications. Some private insurances don't cover the medications.
Oh, wow.
Josh was released from the hospital on an injection that was $3,482. I'll never forget that number.
Oh my God.
Because I was thinking maybe we could pay for it.
Right.
And then went, oh my God, no one can pay for this. And a lot of private insurances
Yeah, and then what do they
it.
do when they obviously, like someone, if I don't know if they're on Medicaid or whatever, they can't pay $3,400.
I don't know. I mean,
wow.
Maybe somebody can, but I don't know them.
Right.
Because I don't know them.
Yeah.
And what we learned through that was, well, we had to drop private insurance in his case.
Oh, wow.
And go with state insurance because the state will pay for it.
Oh, wow.
But that's also a misnomer. You know, you think, I got private insurance, I got the best health care.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. You know, and so we need to stop looking down on public health care too.
Yeah.
Because
I was just going to say, can I touch
will
on that?
Cover it.
Absolutely, because I was thinking, oh my God, he's going to get on Medicaid. I don't know what is going to be covered.
Right.
Because I thought, and I really had really good insurance, and I was like, what? There's no way. I can't afford that, you know? So thank goodness that she educated me on that. And I definitely do not look at healthcare. I look at healthcare totally different now. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's rough. And those are the things people just don't know.
Yeah.
Like she said, you get discharged from a hospital with no follow-up plan. How does a person who is really struggling with what's going on
Absolutely,
in here sit and read a paper and understand the meds?
And good thing that Josh had a community and he had support. Can you imagine someone who doesn't even have that?
When Josh was first on medication, he was on a lot of medication. A lot of our appointments were just me stopping by, having him fill the pill bottle because it doesn't do any good for me to do it for him.
Right.
But I would say to him, I want you to tell me why you're taking this medication. What is this medication? What is the dose? And then put it on your day. And we would organize that. And then following up, are you taking it? How's it making you feel? You know, and really listening.
Yeah.
Because there are some side effects for some of our young men when they are on an injection or some of the antipsychotic medications. But until someone talks to them about it, I'll just say it's erectile dysfunction. A lot of people don't want to talk about that, especially a 22-year-old male.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's knowing that and then being able to present the question and then being like, oh my God, everybody else gets this too? Like, it's something wrong with me, you know, of that nature. So it's all these secrets, they keep people sick. I mean, I think, what is that saying? You're only as sick as your secrets?
As your secrets, yes.
And it's what keeps us sick.
Yeah.
To have all those secrets and to not just talk about what is going on. Find people you trust.
Yeah.
Find people who have knowledge. Because there's a lot of misinformation out there about mental health, as we're talking about, and medications and all of that. So make sure the person that you're talking to is knowledgeable. Right. But also very down to earth, open, and understanding.
Yeah. And what do you do about people that just don't have the I won't say love, they're just don't have that, like a mom who I just can't deal with this and don't have the patience to actually take the time to help the child.
That happens.
Yeah.
That we do.
Okay.
We do, and we continue to do that until the parents want to. You know, I have not met a parent yet who really doesn't want to ever speak to their child
probably just don't know
again.
what to do.
Well, they've experienced a lot of trauma at what has just happened with their child. And until the parent can address their own experience and their own trauma of what's going on, they might be really blocked off, you know, because, I mean, it would be unhealthy to keep being re-traumatized. So people set a boundary, which is okay, but they also then need to work on how do I get help for this on my end? Okay. So that I can understand, I can be okay, I can learn how to have some relationship. And that takes a process. Yes, that is a process for some people. And it's okay. We have to meet people wherever they are. Yeah. You know, I mean, because if you don't, they'll never come along with you. I mean, it's just, to me, it's common sense. Doesn't seem to be common sense
for
across
everybody.
All the systems.
Right.
But yeah, you have to meet someone where they are. And if where they are is angry and pissed off, then that's where you meet them. You know, that's good. If they're crying and in tears, then that's where you meet them. If they're in laughter, then meet them in, you just meet them where they are. Right. And then help to support and walk them just as you would say somebody broke their leg. You might take their arm and support until they get stronger, until they get their stride. It's no different. That's good. That's what we do.
That's good. And you guys service all ages? Well, obviously.
Well, so the team specifically that I work with is the Transition Age Youth Project.
Okay.
And we're called the Action Team there. Sorry.
No.
So we do focus on the 16 to 26-year-olds.
Okay.
Our team actually goes up to 30.
Okay.
Because you don't turn 26 and woo,
Yes.
hey, I'm not an adolescent anymore. Because what we also know is that a brain isn't fully developed, especially in our young men, until they're 25 years old.
Yeah.
So like Josh, his brain's still got a couple more years of development. And there's a lot of challenges that, mental health aside, finding an apartment, how do I pay for it? How do I clean it? Pay the bills on time, do this and that.
And during that transition period of, okay, I'm no longer a kid, I'm not a teenager, I'm an adult now. Now what do I do? How do I?
Yeah. And some maybe they can't call their mom.
Right.
Like Josh can.
Yeah.
Because maybe their mom's either not with us anymore or they're just not in a place where they can be helpful for maybe some of their own struggles.
Right.
And so that is what the team then can be there for, to help with those things.
Okay.
And we do try to also then partner with families in any way, any semblance of a relationship.
Right.
That can be positive.
Right.
And I think I've said to you a lot, Sally, we've got it. Just let us. You enjoy being his mom.
Yes.
Wow.
Enjoy being his mom. Love on him. Let us get this part.
Wow.
And because that's what she needed.
Yeah.
You get some of it more. She's like, oh, but she needed that break.
Yeah.
You heard how long she was dealing.
Yeah.
With a whole different child.
Right.
Before coming into
and
this.
she didn't know. That's
and
the
not
thing.
knowing.
Not know.
It was 2.5. Just horrendous. Just horrible. It was painful. 2.5 years that I had to go through this, where I would just be in the bed crying out to God, please. And, even something that Kathleen said about transparency, like, I am the most private person in the world. And I hate people kind of knowing anything personal, good or bad. I share it with the people that are close to me.
Yeah.
So I had to really come out and do that, because I was thinking, oh my God, if I'm going through all this, there's other people that are going through this,
it too.
that they need this help. And I'll never forget, kind of comes back to your burden and the vision. When I was going to places for people, and I'm sitting there like, I didn't know this stuff. I bet there's other people that don't. So I'm sitting there jotting down notes saying, I was like, had this vision like, okay, Kathleen's going to talk to these people. Dr. Surratt is going to talk. And I'm literally just thinking, my son wasn't fully, I'm going to say healed, but he wasn't fully in where he is today. But I'm thinking, oh my God, do these people know that this really exists? And I was like really thinking hard, there has to be something. And that's kind of where I started the support group.
Okay.
During that time, I was writing my book. I had finished my book, but I wanted to make sure that the support group came before the book.
Okay.
Because I didn't want that to be the focus.
Right.
And it's again, like I said, I didn't want to do it, but I knew I had to, because there were so many other people that needed. And in the, just even in the last year and a half, although my focus, like, okay, well, get connected with places for people, but just talking to parents. And at first I was really afraid of doing this support group, because I thought, I don't have all the answers. I can direct you to the resources, but I don't have all the answers. But again, I thought, no, because it's the parents that really need this support.
Yes.
And when I mentioned NAMI, one of the things that I mentioned was that the location.
Okay.
So then I, initially started with Overland Community Center, because I thought it's not, they can't get to it. It's not easily commutable.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's kind of what, and then I had partnered up with someone on Natural Bridge, one of the churches there that I was having the meetings.
Okay.
There I did take a break, and something that even prompted me back to wanting to go back to doing it was my son Josh. He just literally asked me 2 weeks ago. He said, Mom, when are you going to start Gleam of Hope again? I was like, what made you say that?
Wow.
And so anyway, and I thought, he said, because I just think you do. And so I wanted to kind of get back into it. People can, reach out to me. I haven't started the groups again.
Okay.
We'll kind of work on that. but they can reach me at Sally at Gleam of Hope Community.com. So, and even in the, last several months, people have, called me to kind of get help or at least ask about resources. Again, it's Sally at Gleam of Hope Community.com. And I did bring some books for your listeners.
Oh, yay.
So it just kind of talks about the signs, everything I went through my journey with Joshua and, where we are today.
Okay. So what is your vision going forward for Gleam of Hope?
For Gleam of Hope really is continue. Like, I need to partner up, which when I was having the support groups, I was having the quarterly groups were the ones that the other resources would come in.
Okay.
But my hope and my vision is now to help the parents, but really educate them.
Okay.
So, partnering up with Places for People.
Yes.
And I am also on the Behavioral Health Network board.
Oh, nice.
So there's BJC. There's so many other resources that have actually agreed to come during the support group to talk about what they provide, the resources, and just how to help. And it's a lot of it education. And a big thing is people don't know where to turn. They don't know where to start. And hearing other people and their experiences.
Right.
Really
and can it be so it's not just people who are in psychosis, it could be for any type of mental illness, like depression or whatever. If you're dealing with those things and you just don't know where to go, they can come to the groups.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's not just for people that are actually dealing with themselves, but it could be for parents or
there's a lot of people that deal. One of my groups that I had individuals there that were caring for their parents that dealt with mental illness, and I was like, whoa, that's a whole different spectrum.
I can't even imagine that either. Yeah. Okay, well, any last words you would like to say to any parents or to any listeners to kind of give them just some information or just some encouragement of things that they need to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Do not give up. There'll be times where you feel like you just can't handle it anymore, do anymore, but definitely don't give up. Get a support group, get your village together, whatever that looks like for you. Yeah. Definitely, but do not give up on your child.
Do not give up. And Kathleen, any last words for you?
Talk about it.
Yes.
Talk about it everywhere, anywhere. Make it normal.
Yeah.
Make it just completely normal for someone to be able to say, I am struggling with this. Because you don't know who you're going to say it to, and they might be like, and I know how to help.
Wow.
Or I know where to put you.
Yes.
Right? But I think the more that we talk about it, the more it's normalized, people will be much more open to receiving the help. Mm-hmm. I did want to say quickly that the average time in psychosis, so with what Josh was experiencing with no help, is 1.5 years.
Oh, wow.
A lot. You could imagine.
Right.
If you go with your heart disease,
for a year and a half
with no help. No intervention, it will get worse.
Wow.
And so we are really trying to shorten that.
Yeah.
So people aren't afraid. We don't want people to wait to get help when they absolutely have to.
Right.
We are there if that's what happens.
Right.
But if we can see some first signs and be okay with saying I need help, best case scenario.
Awesome.
In any of the day, in any of that.
Absolutely.
In any area of behavioral health. We just need to talk about it, do more podcasts. Wherever, just make sure that people listen and that they know you're not alone. We have a new shirt that says you're not alone.
I know it.
And I don't usually buy the swag at work, so I'm like, I work here. It's weird. But I bought that one. Yeah. Because I haven't met someone yet that is not somewhere on that spectrum of mental health couldn't use a little bit of help.
Yes. Yeah. And where can they find the information for
Places
for people, yes.
So we have a website, placesforpeople.org, or you can call. We're at 314-535-5600. We have walk-in hours for intake. Anyone can walk in. Please call ahead and ask what the hours are because I don't know.
Okay.
But anyone can come in. We serve all the way down to the youngest of children who may be struggling, all the way up.
Okay, that's good.
As old as you can think.
Yes.
They are there. Anyone can walk in. Anyone can be greeted with courtesy, kindness, understanding. They will be outreached. And if we are not the place that can help you, we have obligation that we hold to ourselves of we will find who can.
Awesome. Well, you all, thank you so much for always tuning in. This was an amazing conversation. Sally, thank you for your transparency of even allowing us to even go into your life and find out what happened. Kathleen, thank you so much for your expertise and your knowledge and everything that we need so that we can, because I'm an optimist, to make this world a better place.
Yes.
Really. So, all right. Well, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, this is May Mental Health Awareness Month. Let's keep the conversation going. Don't be afraid to look up what mental wellness is. But yeah, like Kathleen said, let's continue to talk about this. It's so important. I think we can make difference in just not our lives, but many lives for other people. So again, thank you guys for always tuning in to Be the Voice podcast. We'll be back next week with another amazing episode, and we will see you then. Bye.